It's important for children and adolescents of color to see great and positive examples of people who look like them, be represented in screen and in the media, as it's important to create self-worth and helps with identifying the human you are within the inside. Now, to discuss all this important topic is clinical psychologist Sikander Kalla. Sikander, welcome back to Afternoon Express.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Now, what are the psychological benefits for young boys and girls when they see Black being represented in the media?
I think it's so important from a perspective of emulating positive attributes, positive qualities. I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at social learning theory and you combine that with neuroplasticity, which means the brain's adaptation response to unlearning, relearning, taking in new information, progressing in that regard. When we think about children in particular, they may learn things that are perhaps not ideal for their development or their growth, and that may be as a result of being represented in stereotypical ways that maybe for historical reasons has been portrayed in a negative light. I think it's important then to start putting positive role models forward so that people can really develop into emulating those sort of positive qualities. And I would say in that regard, it plays a massive role in unlearning, relearning, moving beyond the stereotypes, also aspirational goals, knowing that everything is possible and within reach. I think it really does set the ground for future development.
But then, Sikander, what have been the consequences of a lack of such representation?
If there's a lack of opportunities for individuals of color, classically there's been a portrayal of having maybe a token representation that matches a stereotype. Yeah. And what that ends up doing is it perpetuates ways of stereotyping individuals. Yeah. So I think that's where we see stereotypical representation, but also a lack of representation in which we can resonate with it, that addresses core issues that we face. We all carry our own narratives, our own storylines. We all live in such a diverse space where there's so much nuance from a cultural perspective, from a religious perspective, from a racial perspective. There's so much nuance into the day-to-day intricacies of our lives. And sometimes if something does not resonate with you in a way that really touches you, it then becomes very difficult for you to feel included in that social space, to feel respected and to have a dignified way of navigating through the world through that form of representation.
And I just personally have to find out, Sikander, with this cancel culture that we have so often on Twitter and on the social media streets, when we see people misrepresenting us or representing us in a negative light, we all love to just flock and say, you know what, they're done, they're cancelled. Does this play a pivotal role in changing the narrative?
Well, I think it speaks to the fact that we are quite emotionally reactive to issues because this has been a systemic and structural issue that has been going on for so long. And I think because it's been going on for so long, individuals are extremely frustrated with the lack of change, with the lack of inclusion. And as a result of that, there's now a knee-jerk reaction to respond with quite a lot of anger, to feel like I need to be militant in my approach so that I can at least bring about sustainable change. With cancel culture, what we sometimes get wrong is we enact the punishment, which is justified at times, but we then don't leave room for the rehabilitation. We don't leave room for where to from here. The story doesn't end at punishment. The story begins at punishment. And I think we both have to play a role, those who are being punished and the punisher, to say, what is the end goal here? Can we collaboratively work towards a rehabilitation in quite a significant way and not a superficial way?
So then what can we do then on an individual level or on a structural systemic level to rectify the problem?
Well, I think firstly we need to put the defensiveness aside. I think often when someone's cancelled, what have you, they go into defensive mode and they start trying to find ways to defend something that sometimes is indefensible. And I think we sometimes need to be quite honest about that and say, hey, I'm human. I made a mistake. And there's been mistakes that have been made for a very long time, and surely something must change now. And if you look at all the recent uproar when it comes to that, the call has always been how long are you going to keep apologizing without actually enacting change? So I think that rehabilitation process has been the part that's been missing. And I think often people feel frustrated of what role should I play in your rehabilitation if you're not going to play an active role yourself
Yes.
to really say, I've transgressed and I need to make amends. So it sometimes becomes almost like a victim blaming sort of thing. I think we need to be very careful with that as well.
Sikander, thank you so much for joining us and raising awareness. I mean, so many times we think apologies are enough, but I don't think that that is part of the rehabilitation. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how organizations who have transgressed and gone against the curve by shaming certain cultures and colors, how they show up in this rehabilitated way. We appreciate it. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you. You're most welcome.
Thank you so much, Sikander. South Africa, please do head over to our social media platforms and let us know your thoughts on representation in the media.